The power to solve square roots. All right. Now, square root, there's an inverse operation to square root. Can anybody tell me what the inverse operation of a square root is? Probably a square. That is exactly correct. So it's like addition and subtraction. Those are inverse operations. Multiplication and division are inverse operations. Fractions and reciprocals are inverse operations. So square and square root are inverse operations. So how do I use that? Well, I'd like everybody to just come over here and say we're going to square both sides. All right. Now a square and a square root do what to each other? They cancel out. So that's why y is equal to, what is 14 squared? Thank you, whoever knew that. 196 is correct. That's how easy. All right, really, really simple. All right, so let's take a look at number 4. What do I do to both sides? Square both sides. So I end up with 3y equals 81. Now what do I do? Divide by 3. Thank you very much. So y equals 27. Now, it would be good to stop me at any moment that you're unsure. It's just getting a little bit trickier as we go down the page. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
So why wouldn't it be 9? Like, or like in the beginning, like instead of 3y, why couldn't it be 9y?
Because the square and the square root do what to each other? They just cancel out. You with me on that?
Yeah.
When you square and you take the square root, they just cancel each other out. It's like adding and subtracting. All right, so just to make sure we're good, let's everybody take a look at number 6. What do I do to both sides? Square. So now, if you need to, put the square button there or put the square sign there. But if you already know that, you don't have to do that. But the problem is, what's 1/3 squared? There you go, 1/9. So now I have a fraction. All right, so I don't like to say 1/9 divided by 4. I'd like to say 1/9 times what? Yes, times 1/4. All right, so x is equal to what? 1/36. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions with 1/36? All right, now, again, I keep saying, if you have a question, speak up. All right, it just gets a little bit harder as we go down the page. All right, pay attention now, no daydreaming. Now, what do you think I have to do to both sides first? Add 2. You isolate the radical. You isolate the square root. So I add 2. So that's going to be the square root of y is equal to what? 9. Thank you very much. Now I do what to both sides? Square. So I have y equals what? 81. Perfect. Anybody have any questions with that? All right, over here, what do I have to do? Add 1/2. Square root of x equals. Now, at this stage of the game, everybody should be able to say that's just 5/2. Right? Because 2 is the same as what? 4/2. 4/2 plus 1/2 is 5/2. And now what do I do to both sides? Square. Now, a fraction, you square the numerator and the denominator. So x is equal to what? 25/4. 25/4. Anybody have any questions with that? All right. What do I do for number 12? Square both sides. So x/5 equals what? 9. Now what? Multiply by 5. So x equals 45. Hopefully everybody's feeling like that's pretty easy. Anybody? All right, here we go. What do I do to both sides now? Square, exactly, easy. So x minus 5 equals what? 36. Now what? Add 5. So x equals 41. Do I have any issues? All right, everybody take a look at 16. What do you think I need to do first? Divide by 3. Divide by 3. And now what? Square. What's 7 squared? 49. Now what? Add 8. So x equals 57. I told you it's kind of easy. All right, a little bit harder as we go down. What do I do first? Come on, guys, we got this. Now what? Squaring. What does that equal? 16. Now, at this stage, guys, I do feel like you should be able to subtract 1 and divide by 5. So x equals what? X equals 3. You don't have to put the work in there. If you can do that in your head, I want you to do that in your head. You should be able to say 16 minus 1 divided by 5. Anybody good? All right, let's keep going. What do I have to do first? Yep. Now what? Square. What's 12 squared? Now multiply by the what? What? How do I get rid of a fraction? Yeah, multiply by the reciprocal. Since 144 isn't divisible by 7, we just have to leave 7 on the bottom. So that's what, 432? Anybody else get that? Is that good? 432 over 7? Everybody's good? All right, here we go. All right, let me give you 30 seconds. See if you can get this one correct. All right, try it all by yourself. Squaring both sides. 2x plus 9 over 5 equals 9. Multiplying by 5. Subtracting 9. Dividing by 2. Anybody have any issues with that? Anybody? Well, that's not too bad. All right. Number 24, what do I have to do to both sides? Yeah, divide by 6 first. Now what?
No, you do that first and then after that you get done.
Square it. Thank you very much. So x is equal to, what's 5 squared? What's square root of 10 squared? What's square root of 10 squared? 10 over what? Yes, over 36. All right, now instead of multiplying the 25 and the 10, to me, it was easier to reduce first. So I'm going to divide that by 2, that makes a 5. Divide that by 2, that makes that an 18. So now your final answer is 125 over 18. And if you're using a calculator on that, I'm totally fine with that. All right. All right, now we get a little bit deeper water, all right? Everything below this is a little bit harder. Everything below this is a little bit harder. Couple new rules. All right, but let's see what we have. What am I gonna do to both sides? Square. So 3x squared minus 10 equals 16. Now what? Add 10. 3x squared equals, and then what? There you have it. 26 over 3. Now, what is the inverse operation of a square? Square root. That is correct. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Now, when I take the square root, how many solutions are there, guys? Yes, we learned this, that when you have a quadratic, there are going to be two solutions. So this is x equals plus or minus the square root of 26 over the square root of 3. I need everybody to write that down. Now, why does it plus or minus? Because when you take the square root of a square, you get the plus and the minus. Now we got to think all the way back to before we had spring break, we worked on rationalizing the denominator. I have to multiply the top and bottom by what? Square root of 3. Thank you very much. So the answer is plus or minus 26 times 3. Over 3. Anybody got a problem with that? And that's your answer. Anybody have any questions? All right, let's check out number 28. What do I have to do to both sides for number 28? Divide by 4. Good job. 4x squared plus 5. Square root of that equals what? What? 36 divided by 4 today is what? 9. Now what do I do to both sides? Square both sides. What's 9 squared? Now what? 4x squared equals. Is that right?
Yeah.
So x squared equals 19. Is it 18 or 19? I think it's 19. Now I do what to both sides? So x equals plus or minus square root 19. All right, anybody have any questions to that? Anybody? Easy enough? Easy enough. All right, here we go. Let's try the next one. What do I have to do to both sides? Square. Now notice I'm putting parentheses. I'm squaring everything. Okay. Now I end up with do I agree? Now I have to move things around. Yes, you're going to add 51 and subtract 16. That gives me 3x squared equals 51. Now what? Now what? What do I have to do to both sides? Divide by 3. So x squared equals what? 17. And so now what? Final step. Square root plus or minus the square root of 17. Now, did everybody put a little star by this one? All right. And I want you to write this word right next to it. Come on, we're not done with this one. Called there is an extraneous solution. There is an extraneous solution. That means you did all the math correct, and the equation still does not work out. All right, now what exactly do I mean by that? So I'm going to come over here. All right, I just want you to watch. Square root of 19x squared minus 51 equals 4x. All right. I'm going to let x equal the square root of 17. Please just look up. So I'm going to put the square root of 17 in here. So I'm going to get the square root of 19 times the square root of 17 squared minus 51 equals 4 radical 17. What's the square? Now I'm just doing what's inside. So I need some help. What's the square root of 17 squared? 17. All right. Now I need to do 19 times 17. What is that? 323 minus 51. What's that? 200 what? 272. Now, the square root of 272 is 16 times 17. 16, 4 radical 17. So I agree? So that we know is a correct answer. Now, please look up here because I'm not going to do all the work again. I'm going to plug in now negative square root 17. Right? So this becomes a negative and this becomes a negative. Do we agree? Can a square root equal a negative number? No, no matter how hard I try, if I say the square root of 9, does that equal negative 3? Square root of 16, is that going to be negative 4? No, there's no way. A square root is always going to be what? It's always going to be positive. So I need everybody to take a special note. If your x, if you have a square root equal to a variable, your x cannot be negative. Does anybody hear me? Because that means that this whole thing will equal a negative. Can your square root equal a negative number? No. So negative 17 is considered an extraneous solution. The only answer is what? Square root of 17. The only answer is square root of 17. And this one is considered hard because you have to remember that rule. Most people just accidentally put plus or minus square root of 17 without putting much thought. All right, that is a difficult concept right there for most people. All right, so make sure you look that over. All right, same thing with 31 or 32. Here we go. What do I need to do both sides? All right, so everybody's got to pay attention now. I'm going to square both sides. So the square and the square root cancels out, correct? So this becomes x squared plus 9 equals. Now I have to do 3 minus x squared. Well, I want you to write it down as 3 minus x times 3 minus x. That's how I want you to write it. You have to square it. All right? So now I need everybody to tell me what's 3 times 3? 9. Now we do our little smiley face. That's negative 3x. There's a what? Negative 3x. And then plus x squared. So everybody agree with that? All right, now I need everybody to look at the x squareds. What's going to happen to this x squared over here and this x squared over here? They do what to each other? What happens to the 9s? So I have 0 is equal to negative 6x. Now I divide both sides by -6. And so x is just what? 0. 0 divided by anything is 0. All right. So that was a lot of algebra. All right. You have a lot of algebra for that problem. All right. Most people forget this part. Most people forget to multiply that out properly. All right. Make yourself a note. 31 is the same thing. 31 is the same thing. All right. Here we go on 34. Can x be a negative this time? Can the answer be negative? No negatives. Right? No negatives. No negative answers. All right. But first thing we're going to do is do what? Square both sides. 13x squared plus 33 equals 16x squared. So everybody agree with that? Anybody have any questions? Now we need to subtract 13x squared. So 33 is equal to how much? 3x squared. Thank you very much. Now what? Yeah, so we have x squared is equal to 11. So generally, you would put down x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 11. However, can x be negative? No, so the only answer is square root of 11. Negative square root of 11 is considered extraneous solution. That means you did the math correctly, but it gave you a solution that is not true. All right. If you plug negative square root of 11 in, it won't be equal. All right. Yes, sir.
So will it be like that for every question with the plus or minus? They can only be.
No. We got some answers where plus or minus worked. You with me? We got plus or minus square root of 19. Notice the reason why we didn't have to worry about it is because there's no variable over here. You hear me? There's no x.
So when there's a variable.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to tell you. When there's an x involved, the square root can't equal a negative. All right, so your x values have to be positive. All right, good question. All right, now again, guys, this one is a hard one. All right, what do I have to do to both sides? Square. So now I have x squared plus 3x equals what? 4. Now, the reason why this is hard is because this is a quadratic. All right, quadratics you have to set equal to 0. So remember, from before school, before spring break, we were working on this. So x squared plus 3x minus 4 equals 0. X squared plus 3x minus 4 equals 0. So now we have to do what? Factor it. I want to see if anybody remembers how to factor that. Come on. See if you remember how to factor. What is it?
You put x and x.
X and x. Thank you.
And then you will do. Oh, 3 and
Near one.
3 and 1.
Wait,
No, 2 and 2.
4 and 1, because 4 and 1 can make 3, right? Yeah, 2 and 2 don't make 3. So what's the 4 going to be? And the 1's going to be, and then remember you set them equal to 0. X plus 4 equals 0. X minus 1 equals 0. X equals -4. X equals 1. Do I have to worry about the negatives in this case? No, because there's no variable over there. There's no variable. So those are both answers now. That's why that one's a little bit harder. All right. That was the same problem, right? X squared plus 3x equals 2. That's the same one, right? Yeah, so cross out 38. All right, let's knock out 40 now. Got a little bit left. What do I have to do to both sides? Square. Now remember, you're squaring both. Anybody have any issue with that? Now remember, I want to put the x squared over here because I want it to be positive. So I'm going to move everything over here. So 0 equals 5x squared plus 13x. Do we agree with that? Hello, everybody good?
Why would it be 25x squared?
25x squared minus 20x squared. Right?
Uh,
You good now?
Mhm.
Now, I want everybody to put on the side. Don't forget the what?
Greatest common.
What is the GCF here? What can I factor out?
X.
X, that's it. Very good. X parentheses. Remember, you set the individual factors equal to 0. So x equals 0 or x is equal to negative 13/5. Was x allowed to be negative? No, because there's an x up here. Make yourself a note if you forgot. There's an x up there. X can't be negative. So this is the extraneous solution. So your only answer is x equals what? X equals 0 is your only answer. Everybody good with that?
Wait, why wouldn't it be x equals negative 13?
Because if I put negative 13/5, it's going to be the square root will be equal to a negative. Square roots can't equal a negative. You good?
Mhm.
All right, here we go. All right, let's practice. 42, who remembers what that is? 7 radical 11 minus 9 radical 11 minus 12 radical 11.
Negative 14.
Yes, negative 14 radical 11. I like it. All right, what's common with 14 and 21? Right, so we throw down a 7. What's left behind? And a. So my answer was 7 radical 6. Anybody have a problem with that? Anybody? All right, here we go on 46. We got to practice our multiplication. What is 5 times 3? So anybody put 15 down. Now we do our smiley faces. How much is this? How many? Negative 21 radical 2 is perfect. What's this smiley face?
Equals 5.
Plus 5 radical 2. Perfect. Now, you got to be careful. This times this.
14.
Is it going to be minus 7 times 2? I like what you said, 14. All right, but I just was showing everybody 7 times 2. But square root of 2 times square root of 2 is 2. Does everybody agree? And now 7 times 2, he said, was 14. So 15 minus 14 is what? 1. Negative 21 radical 2 plus 5 radical 2 is negative 16 radical 2. Anybody got a problem with that? All right, here we go. Again, 3 times 3 is smiley face. Another smiley face. And then this times this. What's nice about the middle terms? Beautiful. So 49 times 5. Negative 245, right? So 9 minus 245. Anybody else get negative 236? All right, last one. So remember what we do? Yeah, multiply the top and bottom by radical 5. Or radical 5 over 5. Everybody good with that? All right, now look up on the board. The last class I did all the what? I did all the odds. So if for any reason you're not understanding exactly, all right, I have the video. I'm shutting down this video and then I'm just going to put them on YouTube. Go home tonight. This is what I'm talking about. Try to make yourself a little better. I don't want you to have a C. All right. I don't want you to have a C for the semester. All right. Some of you had a C. I'm not happy with that. All right. Come on now. Get your work hard for about 5 weeks in reality. All right. There's so many breaks this last 9 weeks. It's embarrassing. All right. Please work hard. All right. Do the work right now. All right. Don't sit and talk and play. All right. Think about something else. Do the odds right now. All right. While I post the video.